So it
Oh,
doesn't.
hello everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show. It is August 28th, 2018, and I'm broadcasting to you live from my apartment where I forgot to turn off the air conditioner, and there's probably an unpleasant hiss. We also have my friend Josh. He is from Voltoro. He's also a good friend of mine. I'm going to see him soon. How's it going today, Josh?
Good. I'm very much looking forward to the blockchain cruise through the Mediterranean with all sorts of guests. I think, yeah, I mean, we've got a massive amount of guests going.
September 7th to the 11th out of Barcelona. To be a little bit more specific, we're going to Monaco, Ibiza. We're going to tear it up. It's going to be a lot of fun. Before we get started with the show, I want to make sure that we say thank you to our sponsor because we've been having some really neat sponsors. This is for trustetc.com/crypto. So Chris, basically this is well, I'll read it to you. Crypto investors in the US, are you concerned with taxes impacting your profits? It might be possible to mitigate taxes by investing in cryptocurrency with your IRA. With a self-directed IRA, you can invest in Bitcoin and other crypto in a potentially tax-deferred or tax-free way. Discover more by visiting trustetc.com/crypto. The free guide will explain the benefits and possibilities for you to invest in a tax-advantaged environment. Get your guide now at trustetc.com/crypto. So we talked about this a couple episodes, and we've got Bob on. So I want to ask him what he thinks about IRAs and Bitcoin and all that stuff, but not yet. We have to stay tuned. We have two economists today. It's a very exciting day at the Tatiana Show because we've got Rob Viglione from Zencash, which is now Horizen. I wanted to hear what this is all about from him.
Is that right? Wow.
Yes, he's going to give us a little quick little chat. He's got another meeting in a few minutes. And then we're going to get to the meat and potatoes. The man with the plan, Bob Murphy from the Contra Krugman cruise, which I'm doing in October. I'm just filled with cruises, which I'm happy about.
You're just so cruisy.
I'm just a cruiser. So without further ado, why don't we bring up Rob? Joanna's going to bring him on live. He's going to hit unmute himself, and we're going to say hello to Rob from not Zencash, Horizen. Are you still part of Zencash? I mean, can I still say Zencash? What's going on, Rob?
Hey, Tatiana, you can say anything you ever
Wait,
actually.
Your audio's cutting out.
Uh-oh.
All of a sudden. Just make sure your plug is in really nice and neat.
Yeah, I was just getting a phone call, and I forgot to turn the Bluetooth off on my phone simultaneously.
Oh,
so,
okay, that happens.
But yeah, Tatiana, you always can do whatever you want. So it's always Zencash if you want it to be. But to us though, we're starting to say Horizen now, and there's some good reasons for that, right? We're moving well beyond the whole cash element of what we were trying to do. So it really didn't make sense to keep calling ourselves Zencash if we're trying to build out what essentially is like a big digital economy with a lot of other stuff and just distributed application platform ecosystem and all that good stuff. So we're really happy to make the transition. I think it makes a lot more sense. It really embodies where we're trying to go and still linking us to the past. We're not ditching the past, but we are pushing forward. So the project, I think, is a very exciting move.
So does anyone holding Zencash need to do anything?
Not at all. No, and the cool thing was it's Horizen with Zen at the end of it instead of right. So we're keeping Zen. Our coin is just Zen, and the ticker symbol is still Zen. So it's an easy transition.
Yeah, I've always loved Zen in the name.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and then you guys did a whole rebrand of the site, so that's looking nice. But all these aesthetics aside, when Moon. And what's the latest? Yeah, like whatever, beautiful little horizon and stuff. But seriously, what's going on with the project? Where's the engineering headed? Like, what's the trajectory right now?
Yeah, so probably I'd say short term, medium term, and long term. What's going on in the short term? So basically, in the next couple of weeks, you'll see Grayscale Investments is launching a Zen Investment Trust, which is going to be really nice. Nice news for the market because it opens the door for institutional investors and accredited investors in the U.S. To get behind the project in a nice regulated way.
When is that? That's
so
Moon.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
I don't know if the date's been announced yet, so I'll hold off on that. But it's public. Okay. It's public knowledge that the trust is launching, and then in the next month or so, we'll have some new products in the market. So that'll be nice for usability. Nice new wallets, so people won't have to use what are traditionally clunkier wallets and products in this industry. And then going towards the end of the year, we're going to have our liquid democracy on-chain voting system, which would be really nice. So that'll either be towards the end of Q4 or the kind of middle, or the early to middle part of Q1 of next year, where we'll actually have the DAO or this liquid democracy going live, and that'll go live on our first sidechain. So that's the next really big technical part of the project. So other than that, we're still pushing forward on longer term R&D, going down the whole block DAG investigation, the whole directed acyclic graph route, so where you can generalize this whole kind of sequential blockchain protocol and try to generalize that into a tree structure for hopefully massive on-chain scalability, and the sidechains will be our massive off-chain or sidechain scalability. So it'll be a nice kind of new technology horizon that we're pushing here at Horizen.
So Rob, when someone's when you're launching a sidechain, or when you're playing with a sidechain, do you have to lock away Zen into a contract, and then that unlocks some sidechain coins? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so we haven't gone public yet with our exact kind of interface between the side chains and the main chain, but it'll be something like that, right? It'll be something where you have to commit some amount of Zen on the main chain to be able to use services on the side chain, or at least for the interoperability aspect.
Right. Nice. Oh, it's really exciting. And in terms of the liquid democracy stuff, I always love playing with democracy and governance. Is there are you guys playing with any, because voting for me is kind of in general. I wonder if are you guys playing with the ideas of prediction markets within a voting mechanism?
Well, what I think we can start with is that what the government does right now, I think, is perfect. So there's really no reason to innovate beyond what we see in government. No, obviously, totally joking on that one. We are leveraging about a year's worth of game theory research and mechanism design to try to make this stuff a lot better. So awesome. A couple of things that we're going to be improving from basic defunct political processes or voting systems is, one, we're using ZK snarks or zero knowledge crypto for secret balloting, because we don't want the voting mechanism itself to influence the outcome of the vote, right? We don't want, it's like, I always say, like, I have a ton of libertarian friends, obviously, and I always ask them, why didn't you vote libertarian? And they always say, well, the libertarians would have no shot at winning, so what's the point? I just voted Republican or Democrat. That's sad. We don't want to see that kind of, poor mechanism, outcome, I should say, with our voting system. So we'll use snarks. So basically, your votes will be cast during a voting epoch, and you won't be able to see the ongoing kind of tally. But because of the homomorphic property of snarks, we'll still be able to prove that all of the votes cast were kind of summed appropriately. And then the second thing we're doing to overcome voter apathy is we're actually going to pay people to vote. Right? Imagine if you could actually get paid to go out and vote, and we have very simple alignment of economic incentives here. So what I hope to see here, the really fun thing from kind of my academic perspective, is I want to see the emergence of a sort of executive class. Like, rather than just someone being endowed with, say, hey, I graduated Harvard, I'm going to be the CEO. It'll be more like the emergence of people the community trusts, because we're also going to have a delegation function here in this liquid democracy framework. So it should be a really interesting, result that we see here. We'll see where it goes. Our whole mantra is, we don't know what perfect is a priori. So we basically try to set the initial condition and then iterate and get feedback from the market over time. We should probably just ask a bureaucrat what the best solution is and just go with it. But we're taking more of an empirical perspective, a little bit more of a humble approach.
Rob, so if people want to hang out with you and maybe see you give talks, you're always traveling around. What's on the agenda right now?
On the agenda now, so I've got a talk in Seoul, Korea, at the ETC Summit coming up in middle of, I think it's the 12th of September. Then I'll be in Kiev, Ukraine on the 14th of September. And then I'm actually going to go, we're setting up a new dev shop in Milan. So I'm going to spend a few months in Milan helping set that up and just kind of deep diving with our tech team.
Wow, that sounds fun. I'm going to be in Italy, so hopefully we'll get a chance to hang.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, exactly. Oh, and there'll be a London conference towards the end of September I'll be at.
Oh, okay, cool. Great. Well, listen, where can people catch up? Is it still zencash.com or no?
Well, hey, Horizen? You can try it. It'll redirect you to horizen.global.
Okay, Horizen, Zen dot global. All right, great. And what's the Twitter handle now? Is it the same?
Yeah, so it's not the same exactly. So it's Horizen Global is our Twitter. So
okay, awesome. Great. So people can go there and there's all sorts of updates and stuff like that. We are going to go to our next guest. Thanks, Rob. I miss you.
Well,
I hope to see the team soon.
Yeah, I'm pissed I can't stick around and argue about how awesome Krugman is. So,
yeah, I know how much you love him.
Yeah, my hero.
Everybody's hero. Okay, cool. So thanks so much. And great. So Josh, let's bring up our next guest. Bob Murphy is a man with no introduction needed.
Cheers, guys.
Great, thanks. If we could just take Rob off the screen and then we can bring Bob Murphy on the screen. I don't know why we can't see him yet, but that'd be great. Anyway, Bob Murphy is a man without introduction because I don't have one, because he's my friend. He's an economist. He's admired by many. He's a cruise troublemaker. And I don't know, he's got a bunch of degrees and stuff. But most importantly, he is the king of karaoke. And here he is to give us some of his knowledge and give us a preview of what we're going to do at the Contra Krugman cruise in October. Hey, Bob, what's going on?
Hey, Tatiana, good to be here. Just want to explain to people that this is a new office here, so that's why you see my books are still in boxes back there. I'm always on the move, staying one step ahead of Krugman. Yes.
Yeah, so for people who don't know you, I mean, you know, my introduction was so thrilling. But for people that don't know you, maybe you could give like a little bit of your schooling and sort of your rise through academics and your professional background.
Sure. Yeah. So I have a PhD in economics from NYU. I taught at Hillsdale College for 3 years. I went in the private sector for a bit. Now I'm at Texas Tech University, part of what's called the Free Market Institute. I'm a member of what's called the Austrian School of Economics. And I've written a lot of books like explaining economics, free market economics to the layperson, like The Politically Incorrect Guide to Capitalism. One of my more recent ones is called Choice. That sort of explains the view of Ludwig von Mises, one of the big Austrian economists. And the thing that a lot of people know me from recently is with Tom Woods. I am a co-host of the podcast called Contra Krugman, where every week we take something that Paul Krugman, the New York Times Keynesian economics columnist, writes. And once in a blue moon, we do agree with them, and we'll go ahead and say that. But typically, we're Contra Krugman, and use that as a springboard to explain what we think is a more accurate way of looking at the economy.
Love it.
And I guess the last thing I'll mention with pertinent to Tatiana is every year we have what's called the Contra Cruise, which is a cruise tied to the podcast. And so Tatiana's always been with us. She's going to be again. It's October 21st. We're sailing out of San Diego. It's the Mexican Riviera cruise this time. If people want to join, it's going to be fun. Go to contracruise.com for all the details.
So it's 7 days of glorious times. I think that I've actually mentioned the cruise to a lot of different people, and they're very intrigued by it. What do we do on the cruise? So I do a performance. We've got Naomi Brockwell. What's she doing? I know that she has many talents, but what's her role? I'm
still brainstorming as to exactly how we're going to be able to because you're right. She's obviously in the crypto world. So, you and she will certainly be on a panel for people who want to go, hear more about crypto. But yeah, she sings, she's funny. So I'm trying to, and also Brett, I don't know if you've seen him, but like when he was doing some of the roasts at Pork Fest, he's a funny guy. It's kind of like the three amigos. These are funny guys. Just kill one of them. So yeah. So I'm brainstorming as to surely with all of us in a narrow confined space, the hilarity will ensue, and we'll have to figure out a way to use everybody. But in terms of the itinerary, what we do is, we have several stops and days where we stop. People just get to hang out, on the beaches or whatnot. But when we're at sea, we have in the morning, we'll have a session that's more, highbrow stuff that Tom and I will do, do some presentations in terms of our areas of expertise. Tom's a PhD historian, for people who don't know him. And then the afternoon stuff after lunch, it's more fun. Like we'll do what's called Freedom Feud, which it might sound cheesy, but it's actually hilarious, where it's like Family Feud and we have teams, but the questions are typically, for sort of like who's the most obnoxious celebritarian. That would be one of the topics. And it's a Family Feud format. We have like the computer software and everything. It's good. It's good times.
Yeah, I had a really nice time the last time for sure. Josh, one of these years you have to come with us.
I do. I'm always very jealous. I hear the stories. They come all the way to Berlin, these stories.
And half of them are probably true. So.
Yeah, just half. Yeah.
Cool. So, go ahead, Josh.
No, I just wanted to say, I've listened to a heap of the podcasts, and I really, it's great. It's great listening. It's also quite funny, the Contra Krugman.
Oh, well, thanks. Yes. And so that's at ContraKrugman.com, and Krugman's with a K for people who don't know those names. So yeah, thank you. Tom and I have fun with that we, rib each other. So it's good times.
So Bob, you've been doing economics for a long time, but you got involved with cryptocurrency and you wrote a book about it. And so you've been one of the first economists that I know that was really into crypto, I think. And now you watched our P3D show from the other week. So what do you think of P3D? Is this a brilliant new economic model? And you're not committed to, fully shilling for it by any means. But what did you think of that? Because I met with this lady over the weekend. I was in the Chicago Voice of Blockchain event, and she was from the Women's March, and they're doing different blockchain projects. And one of the ones that she was intrigued by was a universal basic income. Now, I am opposed to universal basic income because of a lot of, more like libertarian-y reasons. I'd love to get into what that would mean, and is P3D the solution? And then we could kind of go on to other aspects of it, because I know we were thinking about the casino DAO idea. But what do you think of UBI, and what did you think of the project overall?
Okay, sure. So yeah, so for people, just background, I'm not an expert in crypto per se. I think you're like you say, Tatiana. At one point, I noticed when it was first coming on the scene, you had economists who knew monetary theory talking about crypto, and they didn't know what they were talking about. And then you had people who were like the programmers who understood like how Bitcoin worked, fundamentally, but they didn't really know much about economics. And so they were just saying stuff that I was like, whoa. So I teamed up with this guy, Silas Barta, and we wrote a guide called Understanding Bitcoin. So that's at understandingbitcoin.us. It's a free PDF. So as of that time, I was on top of stuff. Now I don't claim to be an expert in all the minutia, but yeah, with that understanding, of course, yeah, like you say, I'm not here to endorse any projects, but hearing the thing and listening to your guys' discussion last time, which I thought was a really good episode. I mean, I don't think that, this whole enterprise is a scam per se or anything like that. I mean, to me, it looked like it was a clever way to try to solve a problem where you want to have something that people have to pay to get in, inside, of course, not in a tangible physical sense, but then, and then once you're in there, you get to take advantage of certain things that are available. And then, and so there has to be some way to fund that. And this seemed like a clever way of doing that. The rationale being to come in, you have to pay Ethereum to get the tokens that work inside this virtual place. And it's a 10% cut on the front end. And then if you leave, it's a 10% cut. I had that right. Yeah. So that seems, and then, the longer you keep your stuff in there, you get paid dividends. And the dividends are in Ethereum. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean, that seemed like, a pretty clever, the things that were occurring to me, for example, I don't know if you guys know, but the way Sam's Club works, it's, you have to pay an annual membership fee to be a part of it. But then once you get inside, you have access to things that are closer to marginal cost, right? And so that's just a clever way of, because don't worry, this will be real fast, but in standard economics models, if there's a problem where if the marginal cost of something is real low, how does the company stay in business, right? Because think about like a plane or something that, to sell the 100th seat on an airplane is actually pretty cheap from the, plane company's point of view. The expense is building the plane, whether 99 people fly or 100 people fly. And so, but you think about it, it's kind of crazy because in standard economics models, like you want to charge the marginal cost for efficiency, but if they charge the marginal cost, they wouldn't make any money. So there's weird quirks like that. And in the real world, the way entrepreneurs solve that is they come up with ways. So like I said, where Sam's Club, the way they do it is they charge you a membership fee, and then you can buy as much of the stuff you want at pretty low unit cost prices. So here, to me, it occurred to me that, oh, maybe this is a way in the virtual world that they're trying to, deal with this issue of how do we charge people this upfront cost, but then once, they come in, then they can do whatever they want to do. So anyway, that it just, and with all this stuff, the beauty of it is, of course, it's all voluntary. So, if this model doesn't pan out, then it'll die away over time. And the only people who get hurt are the ones who voluntarily put their money into it. So that's always the crucial thing with this stuff.
Yeah, the UBI, I've always had a fascination with it because I have a fascination with the problem of robotics, and we are living. We're not just these sort of people that complain about the machines taking the jobs and the factory workers complaining, because we are really living in a different time. We have now robots with full dexterity, we have eyes and artificial intelligence, and there is a lot of low skilled labor that is being taken, including high skilled labor. A lot. I mean, just the self-driving car is going to get rid of like 6 million jobs in truck drivers and taxi drivers and bus drivers and all sorts. So I think more and more labor and stuff is going to be taken away. The problem is with UBI, for those that don't know what UBI is where a government or a central authority would then just print more money and send it out and give it out, or tax people. And you have this problem where the countries without these sort of schemes, companies would just go offshore because the UBI pays everybody, no matter whether you've got a job or not, a basic income. But a blockchain does make sense because it's creating money out of nowhere, and it has shown, but with Bitcoin, that you can have a steady release of coins, and it still gathers value. People still hold value to that. But then there's also many problems in that case of having this Sybil attack, me pretending I'm 16 people and getting a lot of basic income credits or whatever it is. I mean, what do you think of that?
Okay, yeah, sure. So, and you're right, I forgot to. So before my remarks, what I was just saying in terms of the business model of this approach, in terms of charging people the haircut on the front and the back end, and then you leave your money and earn dividend. So that's what I was talking about. As far as the UBI, my initial, I will, why don't I, in a minute here, I'm skeptical of the whole UBI thing, probably for a lot of the reasons Tatiana is, in terms, especially like if the state's doing it. But as far as, the immediate question of, is this, a model for UBI? I mean, you could argue that, but I would just say, I mean, what this is, it's showing this is a way that if you have some capital, you can invest it in this thing and earn a stream of dividends. And so I would say, I mean, yeah, you could use that as but by the same token, I could say, if I had some money, I can go buy an apartment complex. And then if I rent it to tenants, I earn a stream of income over time. Couldn't that be a model for UBI? It could, but I mean, there's nothing intrinsic about this technology. You know what I'm saying? It's saying, it's showing if you have some non-labor form of wealth, you can put it in a project. And as long as you, picked it correctly, then it'll give you a flow of income over time. So that's true, but I don't think there's anything special about this particular project for that. I think that's, in general, you can say that about a lot of stuff.
But there is in that, so, there's the P3D, right? But then you also have FOMO 3D, which is a game that's generating more dividends and sort of creating its own value. And then you have subsequent games that keep feeding into it. So I think it's beyond just investing in a business and renting something out, because now you're almost before we get to the UBI question, whether or not that's a good idea, that's a good question. It sort of is a little bit like a casino DAO. And so I think that, that's sort of interesting. I don't know. Would that make it more sustainable?
I mean,
I would think so, than just, your average thing where you put your money in, because now there's like additional things that are feeding into it. I think that's maybe where the 3D part comes in.
Right. But I mean, by the same token, what if you chipped in and you bought a share in a mall? And you could say, no, I mean, if any particular business people get tired of it, that store goes out of business, but they bring in a new one. And, there's clothes, there's arcades. So or even a literal brick and mortar casino. You could invest in that and be a shareholder. And then you could say they have all kinds of games. So there's a constant flow of tourism in there. And if you just, so again, I'm not saying as far as the narrow question of, could this thing be a model for UBI? I'm just saying my initial reaction is, I don't see what's intrinsic to this besides just any kind of thing where you can invest in a project that has a lot of stuff inside of it that might attract customers.
Yeah, I mean the key word is universal, right? So if everybody is owning part of the mall, then the mall owner would also, I mean the shop owners would also have part of the mall. It kind of doesn't tend to work in the mass scale of universal. It starts to break down because you kind of need new money to feed the old. It starts to Ponzi out somehow.
Well, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I'm saying that's a separate point from what I'm saying. I mean, yeah, you're right. In the limit, it's not like everyone on planet Earth could all own, Caesars or something in Vegas.
And then they all do well, because there's the gamblers would be losing their money. So they're suffering, I mean, yeah. But they're also winning, maybe.
Right.
Okay. So Bob, why is UBI, what is it and why is it bad, and why do some people think it's good? Because remember, sometimes when you're tossing around a lot of these terms, I like listening to you, but I didn't study economics particularly, other than hanging out with cool people like you, so I have overarching understanding. But is there a place that people could kind of get almost like a glossary of some of these terms, or is there like an episode that you and Tom do that kind of goes over some of that stuff? Or do they just have to pick up an econ book? You know what I mean? Well, they're just fine. That might be the rule. But
I don't know that it's in a book. I was talking to a guy who's working on a booklet, like laying out the issues, but it's not released yet. I don't think Tom and I covered it because I don't think Krugman has covered it yet. There's an episode of what's called Econ Talk that's a podcast hosted by Russ Roberts. So if you Google Econ Talk, UBI Mike Munger, it'll come up, because the guest he had was this guy Michael Munger, Munger. So they talked about it, and Russ was critical and Munger was pro. So UBI stands for Universal Basic Income, and it also has some other names like a BIG, Basic Income Guarantee. That the benefit of that is the acronym is BIG, and so what it is, and it's been around for decades, the proposal in various forms. So the idea is, so people who are conservative or libertarian, the way some of them are actually mildly in favor of this thing is a second best. As they say, look, at right now, the system we have is horrible, in major states around the world, where they're basically paying you not to work, right? If you look at the structure of the income support payments, typically it's like, if you make below a certain income and you have a bunch of kids and, you don't, then you get such benefits, especially like with Obamacare in terms of the US. Whereas you start making more income, those benefits either just fall off a cliff or they phase out. And so there's like an implicit, very high tax rate, in the sense of, if right now you make $0 and then you go out and get a job and make 20,000, how much, including the benefits you lose, do you end up with? How much more money do you end up with when all is said and done? It's not that much. And so there's like a very high tax rate in a sense. And they're saying, so no wonder people get trapped in poverty for multi-generations. Yeah. So they're saying, instead of that crazy system, let's just give everybody a floor. Like, if we're saying in this society, it's unconscionable, we're not gonna let someone die of hunger on the street. So we have a very low floor of just guaranteed income. Everyone gets, whether you're Bill Gates or a homeless guy. So then the incentive problem is solved, that you don't get penalized for going and earning more money, because we want people to go work. So that's it. My main problem, besides the morality of it, that technically you're still stealing from some people to be able to pay for that, and stealing is wrong. But in terms of the numbers, I've never seen someone give me a number where it works, that if the floor is going to be high enough that the typical person would be okay with getting rid of food stamps and Obamacare and all these other programs to help poor people, then the tax rate on the income that's above that floor that would be needed to make the numbers work is really high. And so when the dust settles from this new system, you're like, okay, I could work, and anything above 50 grand I make gets taxed at 70%, or I can make 30 grand doing nothing. And if that's the fate, if you have that kind of system in place, it's possible a lot of people are going to choose to really scale back how much they earn. So those are the sorts of problems I have with it.
My biggest problem is that if people are having a basic income, the government just has such a massive control over you. I mean, the whole society is fed by the state then, basically, and that means that they will do anything to defend that state, no matter how disgusting they become.
Yeah, on that point, so the reason also, Tatiana, so the reason a lot of people, and Josh, you were mentioning this too, that this idea has picked up some steam is that with, AI and stuff, it does seem more and more like, oh, gee, aren't there larger segments of the population that are just not going to be able to support themselves? So on that narrow point, I am much more optimistic. Like every time there's a technological improvement, there's people saying, this is the end, like, oh, gee, with switchboards, coming in, all the people who used to plug in phone lines, what are they going to do? Or, the car comes in, all the people who made horses or improvements in agricultural productivity, where a small group of people can grow all the food now. What are all those other people going to do? And so so far it's not happened where humanity is screwed because now we become so much more productive. It's the other way around. Like it's like a Jetsons world. The Jetsons are not starving. They're living in luxury because robots do everything, right? So that's on the narrow economic point. But more generally, what you're saying, it kind of freaks me out when you have all these billionaires coming forward and proposing UBI, because if you think about the kind of world that would be, is there'd be a few people who own everything and they earn all of the pre-tax income, and then you've got millions or billions of serfs who are living off the scraps that the government gives them. That kind of freaks me out. I don't view that as a world of all of our needs are taken care of, and or like you say, yeah, they are, but just like in a slave or a prison state. The guards feed you. And so you could say, oh, they provide all my basic needs and I'm not literally dying, but that's not really a great living.
Yeah.
Wow. That sounds a little crazy. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want a UBI. That much I know. It doesn't seem like a good idea.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Josh.
Tatiana, I mean, I do see, but Bob, you are saying that you're confident people will continue having jobs, but I don't think we're in the situation as the Luddites were in when they were smashing up machines and saying, oh, look, this new cotton mill is taking everyone's job. There really is the point of we're seeing it in terms of AI is really taking a lot of call center jobs. We're seeing Google now answering calls, taking calls, robotics, doing all these sort of things. And I do think it's important to not just think, well, I don't think it's going to happen, but for economists like yourselves to think about other models and philosophers as well, to think about how do we structure an economic model without proof of work, without the concept of proof of work. And it just be interesting thought exercises without having to grow a massive centralized government, because this could be an eventuality where we just don't need humans for most things.
But people aren't going to just sit around doing nothing all day long. I mean, don't you think that people would just find other jobs? I mean, there's lots of things that they could do that would have value. I don't want to keep talking.
They might do things that are fun, but they're not going to do things that are productive that people want to pay for, because those productive things are done much more efficiently by the machine. Like, the most of our society is based on reducing any sort of inefficiencies, and machines are the biggest inefficiency in most things are the human.
Here's an example. When the internet came out, people thought it was going to replace it, or social media, right? But now you need social media managers and stuff like that, like Crypto Media Hub. And then you have to have people do that. So it's like new jobs arise when you don't expect them. I don't know. Why would all of a sudden now be any different?
It's not about all of a sudden. It's more, there's certain technologies, like for instance, the self-driving cars, the first really mainstream robot that's going to be in most people's lives. And it will really decimate a massive economic zone player. The driving sector of people looking after these dumb vehicles is so enormous. And yeah, of course, you need people to look after the self-driving cars, like mechanics and things. But I mean, just interested in what you think about that, Robert.
I mean that is true, but again, you could use that. That's true anytime there's a major disruption. And I agree with Tatiana that ultimately it just means what the humans now are. It frees them up to do other things. And yeah, in any particular case, there's a distributional problem. So somebody who's really great, he's built up a career and he's an awesome truck driver. That person might be hurt on that one issue, but that means everybody else benefits from the fact that now, they can sleep in the car, or they can read or whatever while the car's driving them. way fewer people are going to die in car accidents every year. You know, there's things like if somebody cured cancer tomorrow, there'd be a lot of doctors who had spent years in medical school and, you know, maybe have hundreds of thousands in debt, and they might be really hurt by that. But if you say, is it bad or good for humanity to cure cancer tomorrow? Obviously it would be a good thing. So I would say the last thing I'll mention, just in terms of the economics, it is true that, you know, you might think, well, wait a minute, there's certain people that don't have the right skills that I could see how they might, you know, not be able to earn very much in this new world. But by the same token, if everything, you know, the machines are so productive, things would be really cheap. So I think probably what would happen if this is unrestricted, you know, unregulated, just what would laissez-faire end up doing is, it's true, like the gap between the top 1% and the bottom, you know, 99%, or sorry, the bottom like 5%, let's say, that gap in absolute terms might get bigger, where, you know, people are going to Mars and stuff on holiday, whereas but in terms of the absolute standard of living, you know, like the machines could go build a McMansion for nothing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that would be like how now you go to a restaurant, they give you water and don't even charge you. I mean, that might be like what a normal house is or something in the year 2200. So it's true, though, people there might feel like, oh, we're really poor and miserable. But if we saw their lifestyle, we'd say, no, actually, you're, you know, wealthier than most people alive today. So I think it might play out like that.
Interesting.
I like that breakdown. That was good. You know, Bob and I, we went and saw The Big Short, and there's all these Bitcoin ETFs and stuff that are getting rejected and stuff. All this weird stuff is going on. And so Bob wanted to talk about if crypto is just as vulnerable as the mortgage-backed securities market. And I was thinking, I don't even understand what that means. So can you tell me what the mortgage-backed securities market is? And just, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be acting like an idiot on my own show, but I can't imagine that every single person knows exactly what happened with the financial crisis. Maybe 50% of these listeners. That's what I'm going to go for.
So yeah, the reason I brought that up is because you guys meant it was a real quick thing, and then you guys moved on. But it came up. I don't know, Josh, if you brought it up or no, it was the guy who was real skeptical.
Right.
But yeah, so he brought up
Byrne. Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought it was a good topic where he was saying, "Hey guys, let's be honest here. You know, what we're doing in crypto is just as, you know, vulnerable as what was going on, you know, back in 2007." So
so a little history lesson, and then we can
in terms of the standard thing, I think most people would endorse what I'm going to say here, you know, most financial analysts and stuff, is that banks in the 2000s were originating mortgages to people that could not, they should not have been given them to, like in terms of their income or whatever. In the most egregious cases, they were called liar loans, where the person from the bank taking the application knew that the applicant was lying about his income.
Yeah.
But he was going ahead and do it. And so at first glance, that seems weird. Like somebody who's a socialist or Bernie Sanders or somebody would say, yeah, because that's capitalists or morons. They said, well, wait a minute, but why would they loan money to someone they know can't pay it back? And the reason was because it was a rising market. And so the bank knew that the originating local commercial bank wasn't sitting on the mortgage. They were selling them off to Wall Street, who was then taking them and bundling them up, these things. So a mortgage-backed security is like, it's like a big bucket, and they put 1,000 mortgages in it, and then they sell slices of it. So like imagine when people make their monthly mortgage payments, it starts filling up the bucket. And so if what you're buying is the right to have the bottom slice of that, that's a very safe thing, because it's saying like, even if 900 people that month don't pay, the 100 that do, you're still getting dibs on that. Whereas the top slice is very risky. And so then these, you know, Wall Street firms were selling off pieces of this thing, and they had different risk profiles and so forth, right? And so you know, to give a mortgage to one person, if that guy gets laid off, you're in trouble. But the idea was they were pooling it. So that's what was going on, where people were getting access to the U.S. mortgage or real estate market, thinking they were very safe because they were bundling this stuff. And so that it sort of all fed. And so one of the things that was a problem is the computer models they were using, and this was brought up in your guys' last episode, were very opaque. Literally, people who have PhD in physics were the ones designing these models to like say, well, we got all these risk characteristics and we're slicing and dicing these things. Yeah. And so they were hard to understand. And so then when the real estate market started crashing, then everybody they panicked. And like with Lehman Brothers, for example, like, you know, there were counterparties. So big financial companies had issued like insurance contracts on these things. and that was part of the problem as well. Okay, they're called credit default swaps. So things just kept piling on each other, and so but the part of the problem was that people weren't expecting the real estate market to credit. Real quick, last thing I'll mention is part of what happened is the computer models they were using thought real estate was local. So the models looked historically and said, oh yeah, it's true. The Miami real estate market might go down 10%. What's the historical probability of that? Blah, blah, blah. The Vegas, real estate market might go down 10%. But they thought the chance of those two events happening simultaneously, they were multiplying them together because they thought they were like flipping a coin a bunch of times in a row. They thought they were separate, independent statistical events. So to them, in their model, the chance of the whole U.S. real estate market going down 10% was like a 1 in 1,000 year, 10,000 year event. When obviously,
wow.
So that's part of what happened. But with all that stuff, I would say there was a lot of government intervention involved with the Federal Reserve, and there's all sorts of Community Reinvestment Act and things like that. Whereas you see the opposite with crypto. The government is actively hostile, right? And so I don't think there's that. I guess we could argue about, does the Federal Reserve, is that pumping up crypto prices? And I do think the Fed has been real inflationary since 2008. So I guess we'd have to be honest and say that that's possible. And then the other thing though is that guy was saying like, oh yeah, if they hadn't intervened, the whole financial sector would have collapsed. I think that's blown out of proportion. That I don't think the whole financial sector was vulnerable and was going to collapse. David Stockman has done great work on this.
Yes.
To say, like, in other words, I think that was stuff that like Henry Paulson freaked everybody out, who was the Treasury Secretary, former head of Goldman Sachs, working for the Bush administration. I think they had to scare everyone to be able to bail out their buddies. So yeah, the major investment banks would have gone down, but that doesn't mean your ATM would have stopped working. And yes, another last one, and I'll stop my monologue here. AIG, you guys may remember, that was a big thing, and the Fed came in September of 2008 and took them over. AIG is a big insurance company, life insurance company. But the stuff they were in trouble with was their like speculation on their investment side. The underlying life insurance policies, those were all segregated accounts. So it's not like anybody's life insurance policy would have all of a sudden not paid off. Okay, so there was a lot of misinformation to scare the crap out of people, to give the government the ability to take stuff over. Like the government literally nationalized a bunch of big banks. If Hugo Chavez had done that, Fox News would have been freaking out. But since it was the Bush administration, it was like, oh, well, we got to do that. So number one, I would say crypto is not nearly as propped up by government intervention as that sector was, and also that sector was not as vulnerable as people were led to believe, because that was used just to justify the government bailing out, the rich guys who screwed up. Yeah.
Yep. Great points.
I feel like people listening to this show are going to get smarter, and I'm happy for that. But we have to wrap, guys. We've been on for a little while, and I don't know. I've got to get ready for this Euro trip. And is there anything else that we should plug? Bob, where can people learn more about you? I know that they can go to contracruise.com, right? And they can still get their cruise October 21st to the 28th out of San Diego. But what else? How can they become as smart as you are?
So yeah, I would encourage people, thank you, to follow the podcast at contrakrugman.com. My personal website, which is where you can get links to also, is at consultingbyrpm.com.
Cool. And Bob, I was thinking next time you come on, I know we've talked about this before, but I'd love to talk again about the options for like legal recourse and chaos theory, because you have that book, right? Chaos Theory. Yeah, so I like some of that stuff. So next time I'd love to have you back on. Thank you to our sponsors, trustetc.com/crypto. Go there and find out about your Bitcoin IRA. Oh shit, we never talked about the Bitcoin IRA. Is an IRA a good thing to get, Bob?
I personally don't advise people to do that, but because again, the government, there's a lot of rules with the government controlling when you can take your money out and stuff like that.
It's like a big Ponzi scheme to me. I don't know.
Well, they're one of our sponsors, so maybe we could not say that.
Oh, no. Well, the IRA, by putting it into crypto, I think it's kind of better than having it in a fund where you always need more people in to sort of. I don't know if that's how it works. In Australia, it kind of works like that. I don't know if the IRA is the same as the superannuation stuff in Australia.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
well,
Yeah, I was referring just to the generic,
A
tax
generic
code thing.
IRA is
Yeah,
not
that's
good.
what I thought you were asking me about.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, am I going to have to edit this? I'm like, this is awkward. But as long as, and because I don't want to tell people to do an IRA if it's a bad thing. I was always told that an IRA was very safe. So I'm curious how a Bitcoin crypto one interplays. I guess I'll have to go to the website and find out more.
Well, if your IRA, basically your IRA, as far as I understand it, goes around and speculates on your behalf, and you get a menu. I don't know if this is how it's in Australia. You get a menu on your risk appetite for your long term, and if you're older, you tend to just have your IRA going to blue chip stocks and indexes and things. Whereas if you're younger, you can afford to have sort of riskier portfolios. But at the end of the day, you're trusting a big investment bank to make those decisions for you, and a self-managed IRA, super fund, superannuation fund, would allow you to choose yourself. And again,
I don't think that's for everybody, though. Just the sound of that sounded super hard. I would want to work with a trusted person that would just do it, and then I could tell my dad, "Look, Dad, I have an IRA," and he'll be, That's how I feel. I see that playing out.
Look, what I keep telling people is, people always say only invest as much as you can afford to lose in crypto. I say only invest as much as you can afford to lose in fiat. So it's up to you.
This is not financial advice. None of us are qualified. Bob, a little bit, but even he's not claiming to be giving you advice. Thanks to everybody one more time. Bob, your website?
ConsultingbyRPM.com.
Okay, great. Vaultoro.com. You can go there, get your gold, get your cryptos. Cryptomediahub.com. Come talk to us about marketing, PR, and all sorts of crypto fun, social media stuff. And TatianaRose.com if you want to buy any of my music, because right after I'm done talking on the podcast episode, the full version of the Tatiana Show jingle will be playing. So find out more about me at TatianaRose.com. Check out all my upcoming shows, and I'll see you soon. Peace out, everybody. Thanks.